Well, dang. We're going to start off with the Chiefs side of things because it's much more brief. And also, if you want to hate watch the Chiefs losing and not experience the Eagles winning, you can do that as well. The thing with the Chiefs to start out is you got to start off with Mahomes, the engine of the team, of course. He was really bad. And the stats aren't going to do it full justice because he was able to get some garbage time touchdowns and passing yards. So that kind of cloudies the waters a bit. But the telltale sign of how bad Mahomes was his quarterback rating. It was 11.4. The average is 50 and it goes up to 100. So 11.4 is really bad. It would be far and away the worst in the NFL. But what's funny about that 11.4 quarterback rating is just how much worse it was or is than the quarterback rating he had in the 2020 Super Bowl against the Bucks, where Mahomes had basically his entire offensive line injured and he was just running for his life the entire game. In that game, also Mahomes was, 5 years younger. So it was a lot of things against Mahomes. Still though, against the Bucks, he had a 42.2 quarterback rating. So roughly 4 times as good as the QBR that Mahomes had against the Eagles. So that illustrates just how dominant the Eagles were and how bad Mahomes was in this Super Bowl. A lot of Mahomes' issues were self-inflicted, to be completely honest. He was inaccurate on a lot of makeable passes, and in addition to that, he just wasn't navigating the pressure very well, which I do. I'm going to get into that for the Eagles. I want to give the Eagles a lot of credit. It wasn't, like they were just bystanders and, Mahomes just walked into problems. The Eagles forced the issue, but Mahomes has to take some blame for this as well. And I don't think he's going to get nearly as much attention from the media as he probably should. Like, he just became all out of whack partway through the game. And that magnified, the dominant presence that is this Eagles defensive line as well. The only other thing I want to touch upon with the Chiefs is not Xavier Worthy having this crazy 157-yard game, which is like maybe his first good game of his career. That's awesome, whatever. But I want to touch upon Kelce. All this postseason, I was hearing that Travis Kelce, he might look old, he might look slow, but he's going to turn back time. And, I was skeptical of that because we had an entire season of data and just, watching of him that suggested, he's lost a step. But every media personality wanted to say, oh no, Kelsey is still the man, even though statistically he was average to below average. And, everybody was like, he's the, one of the best players for the Chiefs. He really had a poor game as well. He had 39 yards. He was second on the team behind Worthy. Kelsey, though, he had 6 targets, only 4 receptions. Again, part of that is Mahomes being erratic in accuracy. That hurt Kelsey a bit. But at the same time, you got to make the catches. But now that that's out of the way, we can get into the fun stuff and talk about these Eagles because they were dominant. And I love to see Jalen Hurts have as much success as he did. He had that interception that was admittedly pretty ugly. I remember seeing that and just being like, dude, you were that's not a good throw to make, and that's not a good throw you made. It was not great. But aside from that, he was really, really good. And it was more than just, hand the ball off to Barkley. Barkley was not effective, like at all. That's the only negative I can think of for the Eagles is they did not have a good run game aside from Hurts. And with Hurts though, he had 221 yards through the air. That's whatever. But 72 yards rushing with 6.5 yards an attempt. That's awesome stuff. And of course, he gets the tush push touchdown for one of them. So, he gets the touchdown there. 2 touchdowns passing as well. So 3 total. And the 75.4 QBR, really, really good all around. And, maybe you're one of those people that don't just want to hear stats. It looked good, from what I was watching. And it was all shapes and sizes. There was a really good deep out route he hit. Again, I'm terrible with the times, so just trust me, it happened at some point during the game where there was pressure in his face. He had to drop back and throw to the left side of the field. He makes that throw, and the guy was rather open, but he was doing so under duress. So it wasn't, a guarantee that the ball was going to get there, but it got there just fine. And overall, Hurts made this offense click. Again, he was not a bystander. He was actively engaging and getting things rolling for the Eagles. I have to say, the real star of the show, for me though, Hurts had a great game. But the biggest thing for me is that the Eagles had just a completely dominant defense that is kind of hard to illustrate just how good it was because everybody was involved. This was kind of like the closest thing that I remember to this was the Seahawks Broncos Super Bowl, where in that game at least the Broncos had the safety on the basically the first play. I think it was the first play after the kick return. And that sets you back pretty bad and you're like, we gotta, get things going from behind. That's difficult. The Chiefs were, very much in the game. I mean, the first quarter, it was 7-0. By the end of the second quarter, the game was looking like it was done. But, in the first quarter, there was still a lot of game to be played. But that's the closest thing I can remember is that Seahawks Broncos Super Bowl where the Seahawks just had everybody involved. And just to go through some of the stats that stand out, there were 6 total sacks for the Eagles. Mind you, they didn't blitz a single time, which I love. Vic Fangio, you are just incredible. Josh Sweat had 2.5 sacks. Milton Williams had 2. Jordan Davis had 1. Jalix Hunt, I don't know who that is, had a half a sack. And that's how you get to 6. So there was a lot of pressure, and that doesn't do it justice. These 6 sacks, the Eagles were complete menaces against this Chiefs offensive line that is a good offensive line. I was continually seeing Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith be involved in at least contain but oftentimes in pressure situations as well. I'm not sure how many pressures that either of them are going to end up with, but they were all like collapsing the pocket and just making it to where Mahomes didn't have avenues to extend plays like he wanted to. And it's funny because looking at the stats, Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter both didn't record a single stat, not a tackle or anything. So, uh, actually, here they do have 2 quarterback hits listed each. And that does go to speak to what they were doing. They were really getting after Mahomes, and my goodness, everybody on the line was super great at containing Mahomes. Everybody, like, this is a sign of good coaching, in my opinion. Maybe, it's just the players knowing what to do, but I think it is good cohesion between the coaches and the players. Everybody knew the assignment was to not let Mahomes, dance out of pressure. And even with that being the case, they were still getting through quickly, but they weren't, just like running past him or giving him an avenue to navigate through. When they got in the backfield, it was like, yeah, the play's over. So, major props to this Eagles defense. I loved the Cooper DeJean pick six. He is, I would say he's getting to be recognized by, the mass public for being really good, but I still think maybe a little bit underrated. He is one of maybe like 3 players in the league that could play all 5 defensive back positions. And, he does the nickel corner situation at one of the highest levels in the league. He's definitely an elite nickel corner. Zach Bond, the best linebacker, I would say, in the league this year. He gets to show off with 7 tackles leading the team and also getting that interception. He had a quarterback hit as well. Everybody was contributing. And, everybody that didn't really get talked about, like CJ Gardner Johnson, Quinyon Mitchell, let's see who else, Darius Slay. It isn't to say that Reed Blankenship as well. It isn't to say that they didn't, you know, do key plays or like key things and have good plays. It's just I don't want to go through and say everybody did their job really well, but they also did. And in reality, everybody did do their job really well. So I can't think of a single player for the Eagles that, wasn't a good contributor on defense. Again, the only thing I can think of holistically for the Eagles at all is saying they didn't have the ground game going, but even still, they kind of did with Jalen Hurts. So that just goes to show you this team, definitely the best team of the season. And, I think they were kind of disrespected by a chunk of people throughout the year because, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you just go, position by position. They are the best team in the league, but the entire year is just, Chiefs three-peat or, any other number, like the Lions being the talk of the town for much of the year. The Eagles, they just win 14 games and then they win a Super Bowl. So, props to them for that. They have as much talent as any Super Bowl winner in recent memory, at least. Those are my thoughts on the Super Bowl. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section. And also be sure to like and subscribe for more NFL content.